The hum of the engines reverberated through the metal hull of the Aurora, a vessel born from the last scraps of Earth's military might. Aidan Kane stood at the helm, his sharp gaze fixed on the vast, lonely expanse of space outside. The stars seemed distant now, as if mocking humanity's attempts to reach them. Earth, the cradle of civilization, had been abandoned, discarded like a forgotten relic of a bygone era. He clenched his jaw, the weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders. Aidan had led the fleet from Earth's orbit nearly a year ago, carrying the remnants of humanity with him. But even now, the mission seemed impossible. Earth had been exiled from the intergalactic coalition, stripped of its place among the stars after centuries of war and chaos. It wasn't supposed to be like this. "We're ready, Commander." Lieutenant Rina Sato's voice broke through his reverie. She stepped up beside him, her eyes reflecting the same solemn resolve. "We've gathered what we can from the colonies. The crew is on edge, but they're ready to follow you." Aidan nodded, trying to push the bitterness down. He wasn't just leading a fleet, he was leading a fractured people, humans scattered across the galaxy, forgotten by the greater civilizations. But there was one thing the aliens underestimated: humanity's ability to survive, to fight, and to rise from the ashes. The communications officer, Chief Derek Cole, called out from his station. "Commander, we've intercepted a signal. It's from Earth. It's faint, but it's there." Aidan's heart skipped a beat. Earth? After all these years? His mind raced with 1,000 questions, but one stood out above the rest. Why now? Why, after everything that had happened, after they had been cast aside by the very galaxy they had once sought to join? "Patch it through, Cole," Aidan ordered, his voice steady despite the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. The signal crackled, its message distorted by the vast distance. Then, a voice, familiar yet distant, emerged from the static. "This is Earth Command. We need help. The door to the stars is still open. We can't let them forget us." Aidan's hands tightened around the console. Earth Command. The last remnants of the government, perhaps even the remnants of the dream they had once shared. "Who's sending this?" Aidan demanded, his voice low and sharp. "Identify yourself." There was a pause before the voice replied, a mix of fear and urgency in their tone. "General Miriam Callahan. We've been holding out. We—" The signal cut off, leaving only static in its wake. Aidan stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. General Miriam Callahan. He remembered her from the old days, back when Earth still had a semblance of order, when it wasn't a forsaken planet clinging to its past glories. Her message meant one thing: Earth wasn't finished yet. But how? How could humanity reclaim its place when even the stars had turned their backs on them? "You've got to be kidding me," muttered Lieutenant Sato, her eyes fixed on the screen. "They're still trying to get back in." "Yes," Aidan said quietly. "And we'll help them." He turned to face his crew, a mixture of seasoned soldiers and civilians who had been through the worst of it all. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We're going back. We're going to make sure Earth is remembered, no matter what it takes." As he turned away from the helm, his mind shifted into overdrive. The intergalactic coalition had expelled Earth, declared them a threat. A warlike species. Undisciplined. Dangerous. The memory of Earth's last war, the conflict that had nearly torn the planet apart, was still fresh in the minds of every species in the galaxy. But Aidan wasn't about to let that define them. The coalition had been wrong about humanity. They had always underestimated their resilience. "What if this is a trap?" Sato's voice cut through his thoughts. "Zaurex won't let Earth back into the fold. He's made that clear." Aidan shot her a sharp look. "Zaurex Vrail doesn't know humans like I do." "Neither does the galaxy, apparently," she retorted. Sato had always been the skeptic. Her cynicism was a shield, built over years of surviving the chaos that followed Earth's collapse. But Aidan knew something she didn't. The signal, faint as it was, wasn't just a cry for help, it was a call to arms. And it was their only chance. "We'll find out soon enough," Aidan said, his voice calm but firm. "Prepare for a jump to Earth's orbit." And make sure the fleet stays under the radar. We don't need the Vralian Reavers finding out we're coming. Sato nodded and went to relay the orders. Aiden remained at the helm, staring into the endless void. He could feel the weight of Earth's legacy pressing down on him. The humans aboard this fleet weren't the same as the ones who had once sought galactic unity. They were survivors. Fighters. And Aiden would make sure the galaxy remembered what happened when humanity was cast aside. Commander, Cole interrupted again, his voice tense. We're picking up a Vralian ship approaching our position. It's moving fast. Aiden's heart rate quickened, but he kept his voice steady. Any other ships in the vicinity? Negative, Cole responded. But it's not good, Commander. If they've detected us, we don't have much time. Aiden's mind raced. The Vralian Reavers, the elite forces of the Intergalactic Coalition, had been the ones to ensure Earth's exile. They had no intention of letting humanity regroup, no matter what had happened on Earth's surface. But Aiden wasn't about to run. Not now. Battle stations, Aiden ordered. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Let's give them a reason to remember us. The crew moved swiftly into action, and Aiden felt a surge of pride. For years, humanity had been the underdog. But now, they were finally fighting back. As the Aurora veered away from the Vralian ship, Aiden looked back at the dark void of space. The galaxy had cast them out, forgotten their existence. But humanity would no longer remain silent. They were coming back. And this time, they weren't asking for permission. This chapter sets the tone for the story, introducing the main conflict, the protagonist's motivations, and the stakes involved. Aiden's decision to return to Earth, despite the odds, marks the beginning of humanity's fight for redemption. The Aurora drifted through the silent void, its engines humming softly as the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. Earth was a distant memory now, a place they could only dream of returning to. But as the fleet neared the first of the scattered human colonies, Aiden Kane's resolve hardened. All systems are operational, Commander, Lieutenant Sato reported, her fingers flying over the console. We're within range of the Kari's colony. We're getting some strange readings from their communication channels, but nothing we've encountered before. Aiden leaned over her shoulder, his eyes scanning the holographic display. The Kari's colony, one of the first to be abandoned by Earth's government, left to fend for itself in the far reaches of the galaxy. It was a mining colony, its resources stripped bare, its population broken but resilient. A perfect place to start. If they could convince the Kari's survivors to join their cause, others might follow. Let's see what's left of them, Aiden muttered. Open a direct line, Cole. A few moments later, the communications officer's voice crackled through the bridge's speakers. Channel open, Commander. You're live. Aiden took a breath, mentally preparing for the conversation ahead. The human colonies were a patchwork of survivors. Some would be open to rebellion, others would be too afraid to risk what little they had left. But they had no choice. This was humanity's last shot. The screen flickered, and a weary face appeared. A man in his late 50s, with the rough, sun-beaten skin of someone who had spent too many years in the harsh environment of the colony. His uniform was tattered, his eyes tired. This is colony leader Ivar Rook of Karis, the man said, his voice gravelly. Who is this? Aiden straightened his posture. I'm Commander Aiden Kane of the Human Liberation Fleet. I'm here to speak for the lost colonies. We're coming home, and we need you to join us. Ivar's expression didn't change. He stared at the screen, his fingers tapping on a table just out of view. Home? You think that's still possible after everything that's happened? Earth's been cast out. We've been surviving here for decades, barely hanging on. And you want us to follow you into whatever madness you're planning? Aiden felt the weight of Ivar's words. It wasn't just the Kari's colony that had suffered, it was all of humanity. They had been abandoned, pushed to the edge of existence. It was a bitter reality to face, but it wasn't a reason to give up. I know it's hard to believe, Aiden said, his tone firm but measured. But we've received a signal from Earth. Someone is still there. Someone is trying to reach out. And I believe Earth still has a future, if we can bring ourselves together again. Ivor's eyes narrowed. And why would we risk everything to help you? The last time we tried to rebel, we lost half our people. There's nothing left but this rock and the few of us who are still breathing. Aiden's gaze softened. He knew the pain of loss, he'd seen it in his own fleet, in every mission they'd undertaken. But humanity's spirit wasn't dead. Not yet. Because you're not alone, Aiden said. Because we've come to fight for all of us. Earth, the colonies, they can't stay silent any longer. There was a long pause. Ivar seemed to wrestle with his thoughts, the weight of the decision heavy in his eyes. Finally, he spoke, his voice quieter this time. What do you want us to do? Aiden felt a flicker of hope. We need your people to join our cause. Together, we can prove to the galaxy that humanity isn't finished. That we won't be forgotten. Ivar's eyes softened for a moment, a flicker of something almost like hope crossing his features. I'll send word to the others. But you're right about one thing, Commander. If we're going to fight, we have to be ready. And we don't have much time. I understand, Aiden said, his voice resolute. We'll be waiting for your decision. The screen went black, and Aiden turned to face his officers. We've got our first ally. Prepare for the next stop. We'll need more support if we're going to succeed. Sato gave a quick nod, already relaying orders to the crew. We've still got 2 more colonies on the list. But Commander, I have to ask, how do you plan to get the rest of the galaxy to listen to us? Even if we unite the colonies, we're still just a handful of ships against a galactic empire. Aiden's eyes darkened as he looked out into the void. It's not just about the fleet. It's about showing them what humanity can do when we fight together. We've been cast out, but that doesn't mean we stay quiet. It means we get louder. And if we have to bring the fight to them, we will. The next few weeks passed in a blur of constant motion. The Aurora and its fleet moved from one colony to another, each meeting another leader, each one with their own doubts, fears, and grudges. Some colonies had been abandoned so long they didn't even believe the signal from Earth was real. Others had already turned their backs on any hope of reunification. But every time Aiden spoke, there was a flicker of something. A recognition. A yearning to belong once more. At the Riona colony, a small agricultural settlement on the edge of known space, Aiden faced another test. The colony was struggling to survive, its resources depleted after years of neglect. The leader here, Yora Tallis, was a pragmatic woman who had seen too much loss to hope for anything beyond the survival of her people. When Aiden's fleet arrived in the Riona system, Yora didn't greet them with open arms. Instead, she stood at the airlock, her arms crossed, her face a mask of skepticism. You're wasting your time, Commander, she said, not even bothering to meet his gaze. I know you're trying to rally us, but we've fought too many wars to trust in empty promises. We're survivors. And that's all we've got. Aiden stepped forward, his voice low. And what happens when the galaxy forgets you, Yora? When Earth is erased from history, and you're left with nothing? She looked at him then, her eyes sharp. You think I don't know that? We've been surviving, but at what cost? If you want us to fight, you have to show us something more than just words. Aiden met her gaze, unflinching. I'm not asking you to fight for words. I'm asking you to fight for your future. For the future of humanity. The tension was palpable, but for the first time, Yora looked uncertain. A crack appeared in her hardened exterior. What's your plan, Commander? Aiden smiled slightly, a spark of hope in his chest. We fight like we've always fought. Together. As the Aurora moved onward, Aiden felt the momentum building. One by one, the colonies were starting to stand with him, each new ally adding strength to the cause. But there was no time to waste. They were on the verge of something monumental. If only they could reach the heart of the galaxy before the intergalactic coalition crushed them for good. The fight was just beginning. The Vailian capital planet loomed ahead, a fortress of gleaming towers and industrial sprawl. Its surface was a patchwork of sprawling cityscapes, heavily militarized zones, and pristine, cold landscapes. Aiden Kane's breath hitched as he stared at the massive planet from the bridge of the Aurora. This was it, the heart of the enemy's empire. The place where the future of humanity would either be won or lost. All hands brace for evasive maneuvers, Aiden called out, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of urgency. We won't have much time once we're inside the atmosphere. Stay sharp. Lieutenant Sato, her eyes scanning the screens with intensity, shot him a quick look. Commander, the fleet is ready. But I still don't get it. We're infiltrating the heart of the Vralian Empire. They'll have reinforcements within minutes. Aiden's eyes never left the looming planet. That's the plan, Rena. They think we're a scattered resistance. We're going to show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The fleet, now bolstered by several human colonies, drifted into the planet's gravitational pull. It was a calculated risk. A direct assault would be suicide, but Aiden had other plans. They would enter under the guise of an unimportant convoy, slip through the defenses, and get to the heart of the Vralian capital before Zyrex Vrail had time to respond. Status on the signal, Cole? Aiden asked, turning to the communications officer. We're still picking it up, Commander. Cole responded, his voice tense. The signal from Earth is getting stronger. But it's coming from deep within the capital. Almost as if someone wants us to find it. Aiden clenched his fists. That was the hope he had been holding on to. The signal wasn't a fluke. It was a message from Earth. The remnants of humanity were still alive, still fighting. The only question was whether they would make it in time. As the fleet descended into the capital's atmosphere, the cold, metallic city stretched beneath them. Massive towers reached toward the heavens, and the ground was dominated by Vralian military installations. Ships patrolled the skies, but none seemed to notice the small fleet slipping through their defenses. We're in, Sato said, a mix of relief and disbelief in her voice. Now we move fast. Aiden nodded. The fleet had a narrow window to move before the Vralian defenses would notice something amiss. He turned to his officers. All right, we land on the outskirts of the capital. From there, we infiltrate. Cole, I want full communication silence until we've reached the coordinates of the signal. Understood, Cole said, adjusting the console. The Aurora and its fleet glided toward the designated drop zone, a barren stretch of land outside the heart of the city. A landing platform came into view, and the fleet touched down with eerie precision. The silence of the landing contrasted with the chaotic thoughts racing through Aiden's mind. He knew the Vralians wouldn't leave them undetected for long. But it didn't matter. This was the only shot humanity had at survival. The streets of the Vralian capital were quiet, the towering spires casting long shadows across the streets below. Aiden's fleet, now down to ground forces, moved with precision. Every step had to be calculated. Their mission was simple: get to the central communications hub where the signal was being transmitted, gather the data, and get out before anyone realized they'd come. The ragtag group of soldiers and civilians had come a long way since leaving Earth. They weren't just soldiers anymore, they were a symbol of defiance. Aiden had assembled a team of the best, from human engineers to the last survivors of the colonies. And now, as they moved through the alien city, they were more than just rebels. They were humanity's last hope. This place gives me the creeps, muttered Sergeant Noah, one of Aiden's top officers. It's too quiet. We're not here to make noise, Aiden replied, his voice low. We're here to be ghosts. The group made their way deeper into the city, sticking to the shadows. Vralian architecture towered above them, sleek and alien. The Vralians were a species that valued perfection, and it showed. Everything was meticulously designed, from the smooth metal streets to the holographic billboards that flickered in the distance. But there was no warmth to this place, no life, no heart. As they approached the central hub, Aiden's comm device buzzed. It was Cole, his voice crackling through. Commander, the Vralian fleet has detected us. They're on high alert. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they start sweeping the area. Understood, Aiden responded. Keep the fleet on standby, but do not engage unless necessary. We'll handle this on the ground. Sato, who had been scouting ahead, returned to the group. "Commander, the building is just ahead. The signal is coming from inside, but we'll need to get through heavy security." "Then we'll get through it," Aiden said, determination hardening his voice. "Move out." The security inside the building was tight. Automated drones patrolled the halls, and the air felt charged with tension. Aiden led the charge, his tactical instincts kicking in as he moved through the maze of corridors, his soldiers following close behind. They encountered several security checkpoints, but each time, they managed to slip past unnoticed, relying on their stealth and quick thinking. When they finally reached the main control room, the doors slid open to reveal a massive data terminal. Screens blinked to life as soon as they entered, and Aiden's heart raced. This was it, the key to everything. The signal from Earth was clearer now, coming from the heart of the terminal. "We've got about 10 minutes, Sato said, keeping watch at the door. "The drones are starting to circle back." Aiden approached the terminal, his fingers flying across the console. The system was locked, but nothing his crew couldn't handle. "We need access to the mainframe. If we can upload the data here, we'll have everything we need to prove Earth's worth." "I'm on it," Cole said, already working his way through the system's encryption. As the data began to transfer, Aiden couldn't help but glance back at the screen. The signal was stronger now. It wasn't just a plea for help, it was proof that Earth was still alive, still fighting. And if they succeeded in this mission, they would have the leverage they needed to force the galaxy to listen. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the hallway. The door exploded inward, and a dozen Vralian soldiers stormed into the room, weapons drawn. Aiden barely had time to react. "Get down!" he shouted, pulling out his sidearm. The first shots rang out, and chaos erupted in the small room. Gunfire filled the air, and Aiden's team fought back with the ferocity of those who had nothing left to lose. For a moment, everything blurred into action, moving, firing, ducking behind cover. But through it all, Aiden's focus never wavered. "We've got what we came for," Aiden yelled over the gunfire. "Let's go!" With the data in hand, the team made their escape, sprinting through the building's corridors, dodging Vralian fire. The Aurora was waiting, and they wouldn't stop until they had everything they needed to bring humanity back into the fold. As they boarded the ship, Aiden glanced back at the capital. The Vralians had tried to crush humanity, but they hadn't succeeded. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would hear humanity's roar once more. And they would remember. The Vralian capital was no longer a distant threat. It loomed on the horizon like a predator closing in, and Aiden Kane felt the weight of the coming battle press down on him like a physical force. His team was battered but resolute, the data they had retrieved from the heart of the Vralian stronghold now in their hands. It was the key to their survival, proof that Earth was not just a forgotten world, but a beacon of resistance that would not be snuffed out. But the path ahead was fraught with danger. The Vralian military was mobilizing, and soon, they would come in full force. Aiden had known this mission was a risk, but now, as the Aurora sped toward the heart of the galaxy, he could feel the tension in the air. This was their last chance. "Commander," Lieutenant Sato said, her voice tight as she approached him on the bridge. "We're being tracked. They've already deployed reinforcements. The Vralians won't let us leave the system." Aiden turned to her, his face impassive. "I know. But they'll have to fight us for every inch. We're not leaving without a fight." Sato nodded, stepping away to prepare her crew for the oncoming assault. Aiden's gaze shifted to the star map projected before him. The galaxy had grown silent in their wake, the faint remnants of humanity spread out across the stars, waiting for a signal, a sign that they were not forgotten. This was it. The moment to stand, to show the galaxy that Earth, and humanity, were no longer the outcasts they had been made to believe. "How long until we reach the core?" Aiden asked, his voice steady despite the growing storm ahead. 20 minutes, Cole replied, the communications officer keeping a steady focus on the incoming signals. "But we'll be in firing range in 10. We'll need to engage or evade by then." Aiden's heart rate quickened, but his resolve didn't waver. "We'll engage," he said, turning toward his crew. All hands prepare for battle. Sato, I want full shields up. Lock all weapons on the incoming fleet. This is humanity's fight, and we're going to make sure they know it. The bridge went quiet as the crew went into action, preparing for the fight that would define their future. Aiden couldn't shake the weight of what was at stake. This wasn't just a battle for Earth, it was a battle for humanity's place in the galaxy, a struggle for survival against a force that had long underestimated them. He wasn't sure what the outcome would be, but he knew they had no other choice. They would fight. The first volley of fire came unexpectedly, an explosive burst of energy that rattled the Aurora's hull. Aiden gripped the console in front of him, his body bracing for the impact. The ship shuddered, but it held together, the crew's quick reflexes and training kicking in as they adjusted their positions and fired back. Shields holding at 80%, Sato reported, her voice calm despite the chaos unfolding around her. But we need to move. The Vralian fleet is closing in fast. Aiden's gaze flicked to the readouts, and he made a quick decision. Engage evasive maneuvers. Get us to the outer edge of their formation. I want a clear shot at their command ship. Cole, send the signal to the fleet. It's time to rally the colonies. Cole nodded, his fingers flying across the console. Aye, Commander. The message is going out now. The Aurora veered to the left, dodging another blast from a Vralian cruiser. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest as the ship shot through the void, weaving in and out of the enemy's fire. The Vralians were relentless, but they weren't prepared for the guerrilla tactics humanity had perfected over the years. They fought dirty, using their enemy's own momentum against them, striking when they least expected it. One more hit like that, and we're in trouble, Sato muttered, her hands gripping the controls with white knuckles. We need backup, and fast. Aiden looked toward the star map, where the signals from the scattered human colonies flickered like small embers in the dark. They were coming. Somewhere out there, the fleet of colonies was mobilizing, their ships sailing through the stars toward the capital. It was all they could do. Aiden didn't expect them to win the battle with sheer numbers. He expected them to fight with heart, with everything they had left. Hold on, Aiden said, a fire igniting in his chest. We've waited too long to back down now. The battle raged on, the Aurora darting through firestorms as it carved a path toward the Vralian command ship. Aiden's mind worked at full speed, calculating moves, analyzing enemy formations, and keeping his crew focused. Every decision, every action, could be the difference between life and death. Incoming Vralian destroyer on our starboard, Sato called out, her voice sharp. Brace for impact. The ship rocked as another blast hit their shields, but the Aurora held firm. Aiden didn't flinch. This was the moment. The Vralian fleet had underestimated them, and it was time to make them regret it. Target their engines, Aiden commanded. Let's cripple their speed. We'll have to go in close. Firing now, Sato responded, her eyes never leaving the console. Direct hit. Their engines are offline. The Vralian ship flared in the distance, a brilliant flash as it drifted, crippled and burning. Aiden could feel the momentum building. They were in it now. The colonies were coming. The fleet of humanity was rising from the ashes. A few moments later, Cole turned, his voice filled with a sense of disbelief. Commander, you're not going to believe this. The fleet, it's here. Aiden's heart leapt. He turned to the window and saw it, dozens of ships, human-made and patched together, emerging from the darkness. The fleet had arrived. We're not alone anymore, Aiden said, his voice filled with awe. We fight as one. For Earth. For humanity. With their combined forces, the tide began to turn. The Vralian command ship was surrounded, their defenses overwhelmed by the sheer number and firepower of the human fleet. But it wasn't just numbers that were turning the battle. It was the determination of every human soul fighting for their place in the stars. Commander, their flagship is going down, Sato reported, a note of triumph in her voice. Aiden watched as the Vralian flagship, once a symbol of their invincibility, exploded in a ball of fire. The Vralian forces faltered, their once imposing line crumbling under the pressure of a united humanity. But Aiden knew this victory was more than just tactical. It was a declaration. Humanity was back. As the battle subsided, the stars once again took on their familiar glow, but now they seemed different. They were no longer distant, in different points of light. They were a new frontier. Aiden turned to his crew, his heart swelling with pride. "We've done it," he said quietly, but the weight of the victory settled over him like a mantle. "The galaxy will know our name. Earth is no longer forgotten." Sato's voice cracked through the silence. "We've earned our place among the stars." The galaxy had cast them out. But humanity had fought, and they would never be silenced again.